How can middle managers lead change when they had nothing to do with designing the change?
In every organization, there's one group holding the whole operation together. Not the top, not the bottom, the middle. Today, three of the sharpest minds in middle management step up to the mic. Sally Foley-Lewis, Jeff Siegel, and Lisa Robinwood. Each brings a different lens, one shared mission: decode what it really takes to lead from the middle with confidence, clarity, and impact. Same questions, three perspectives. Get ready for insight that cuts through the noise and goes straight to the operational heartbeat of your organization. Let's dive in.
Leading change when you don't have any part of the design of it is fun. Most change is designed above the middle and delivered through the middle, and that's the reality, right? And that's exactly why middle managers matter so much. Middle managers don't need to sell change. What they need to do is make sense of it. They are the sense maker. And so change fails when it's passed on as slogans or slides. It sticks when someone explains what it actually means for real work, for the real people with the real priorities. Leading change that you don't design starts with understanding it properly yourself. It's the why, the non-negotiables, the flex points, the possible obstructions so that you can then preempt and plan for. We don't need to agree with every decision that's put in front of us in order to lead it well, but we do need to be aligned enough to explain it honestly. And middle managers can truly add value when they translate strategy into impact. What changes, what stays the same, what support people will get, what's expected now, what's expected eventually. What can I do right now that just helps me move that little bit forward? When middle managers do that well, change stops feeling like something that's being done to you and being done to people, and it starts becoming something that people can actually work with.
I want to build on the point that Sally just made that, the middle management role is all about making sense of the strategy and the ideas and the changes that are coming from senior leadership. I think that's exactly right. That's your role. And what your job is to learn how to do that well, so that when you are in a senior role and have more clout and so forth, that you know how to lead people in the middle to deliver on your strategies. And what I find is so often people they're in such a rush to get to the top. They look at what the people above them are doing and they go, gosh, that's so stupid, or why would anybody ever do that? And it is possible that it is stupid. It's possible. But more likely is there is a much bigger picture that you in your role can't see, because you are sort of in the middle of a function as opposed to seeing across a whole broad range of things going on in the company. I certainly know that when I was in senior leadership positions, I often saw things and my team would be frustrated or whatever, and I'd be like, yeah, I can see this bigger picture. And as a senior leader, part of my job was to help explain and make sure people understood that bigger picture when I could. But I guess what I want to say for the middle leaders is stop trying to jump ahead. Stop trying to be a senior leader when you haven't gotten through the middle yet. This is where you're learning how things work. And frankly, sometimes your boss or bosses may do stupid things. Don't do those when you're the boss, but you won't get to be the boss if what you always do is push back and tell the senior leaders and so forth that they're wrong, that they're not making any sense, that their ideas are stupid or whatever it is, because you don't have the whole picture. So seek to gain that picture. Ask your boss questions like, hey, I'm not completely understanding why we are doing this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think it would be helpful for me to get a little more clarity on why we're doing this so that I can transmit it better to the team. And your boss may say, that's a really good point. Or they may say, yeah, here, let me explain it to you. Or they might say, I really can't explain it to you trust me on this. And what you can do is you can choose to just sort of say, okay, this is the position I'm in right now, and here's how I'm, going to move up in my career so that I can have that clout and drive this business. Or you can fight it. And if you fight it, you're just going to spend a lot of time and frustration, and probably the result is going to be that you're going to be out of job, not your boss is going to be out of a job. So I'm not saying just to roll over. I'm just saying understand that there's a bigger picture, and understand that your role right now may not be to guide and drive the direction of the company, but someday it will be if you learn how to do the job that you're in right now.
It's quite typical for a middle manager to be landed with a change that they need to roll out, deliver, communicate, that they did not themselves inform, that they did not themselves create. And I think that can be quite an awkward, uncomfortable position to be in as a middle manager, but it's the reality of what's expected of you in your role. And I think from my personal experience in this space, as well as working with individuals, I think it's so important to carve out the time and space to digest what's being asked of you. I think that is so important as a first step, for you to sit with it, to make sense of it, to ensure that you fully understood, and even in some respects, even processed how it's going to impact you personally, so that you can get more comfortable and familiar before you then start communicating anything to your teams around it. So it may be, and it could be quite typical, you don't even agree with the change, you don't agree with the decision. It's not about agreement here. I think it's about aligning to it. So take time to understand the purpose behind the change. If you need more information, if you need more clarity, go get it. Assert yourself in that respect. So, make sure you've got all the understanding possible for you to be able to really then align to it and ground yourself in a commitment to it. Acknowledge the challenge that could be present, but get stable in that message, get stable in the situation so you can communicate that more clearly, and then really make it your own. I think the second is be honest and be human around it, especially in that communication piece. I think people very rarely resist change itself. They resist the way in which it is rolled out to them. And if that's unclear, then that creates confusion. If that's accompanied by a lot of silence, not enough communication, they fill those gaps. It creates that uncertainty. So I think middle managers communicate change effectively when they share what's known, they acknowledge what's uncertain, and they create space for questions and emotion. And they expect people to react differently and create the space to deal with that. But I think leaning into that is so important, so that actually you help to dissipate any anxiety and you help to move people forward with confidence and knowing that you're in there with them. And then I think that the final thing is really translating that change into everyday operational action. Too often strategy and change just lives in a presentation, lives in the boardroom, lives in the meeting. But actually, real successful change is recognised through the daily behaviour piece. So as a middle manager, you really make that difference by translating the strategy into action and supporting your team to get behind what needs to be done and articulating priorities, and then really making visible progress. So, leading change that you did not design isn't about having all the answers. It's about finding your own alignment, communicating with honesty, and turning that intention into actual practical action. When you do that well, you really become the bridge between decision and delivery, and really help to enable successful change.
You've just heard from 3 leaders who have dedicated their careers to strengthening the heartbeat of every organization, the middle. Sally Foley-Lewis has spent over 20 years in the trenches and the boardroom, working with more than 20,000 managers across industries and continents. She's a global award-winning speaker, author, and educator who equips managers to be confident, capable, and courageous, and delivers the tools that lift performance fast. Jeff Siegel brings more than 2 decades across global food, grocery, and restaurant giants and a mission to build better workplaces from the inside out. He's a coach, author of The Middle Matters, helping leaders at every level increase their impact. From Cape Town, Lisa Robin Wood is the middle manager coach. Her own leap into senior middle management sparked the confidence crisis that transformed her life and career. Today, she helps managers rebuild their confidence, sharpen their self-awareness, and thrive through GRIP Coaching's practical, high-impact development programs. 3 experts, 1 shared passion, helping middle managers succeed where it matters most. Stay connected, keep developing, and keep leading from the middle.